Hey, hey Benzigolato, how are you doing? Yeah, this is the first stream, so I mean, we're going to look into the game obviously because the lineups are out as well, so that might be interesting to look at, before the game starts. Yeah, I'm doing good. Good day today. Quite excited for the games to be honest, because Icardi was dropped, so I want to see how PSG plays, without him. Are you more excited for today's game or tomorrow's game? Yeah, I think today's game will be a bit more interesting because obviously PSG is a bit of an unbalanced squad compared to Bayern, which seem quite complete, across the pitch. So that's the interesting thing. PSG starting 11. So PSG starting 11, they're not playing with Icardi. Let me find that for you now. So they're playing Sergio Rico because Navas is injured, and then they're playing Carrere, who's their right back, covering for Munier, who's gone. Bernat is playing as left back. Silva as their centre back with Kimpembe. And in the midfield, we've got Marquinhos kind of as a DM, Paredes, who's was playing in the cup final versus Saint Etienne, and Ander Herrera. So they have like a three midfield. And then you have Neymar, Mbappe, and Di Maria. So Mbappe starts, after being slightly injured, and Di Maria as well after a suspension. If PSG bottles again, they will. Yeah, no, I think this is PSG's best chance because a lot of people do think that Mbappe will leave soon. What do you guys think about PSG's lineup then? Do you like Icardi being dropped? We could look into Red Bull's lineup too as well. Actually, I think it's quite interesting because I imagine Red Bull would have prepared for the game thinking that Icardi's going to play because Paris have played most of their season with Icardi starting. I still don't think. Yeah, so Red Bull's lineup is practically the same versus Atleti. So they play Gulakshi, Angelino, Upamecano, Sabitzer, Poulsen as their striker, Klosterman and Kunku. But they actually play Mukiele, Olmo, Leimer, and Campbell. So that's quite interesting. Yeah, Mbappe and Di Maria are a huge difference, I think. I agree with that. That's the thing. I think if you watch, like, for example, Red Bull's last game versus Atleti, they were really struggling when Felix came on the pitch. And, Neymar is going to find spaces where Mbappe can attack. And I mean, Klosterman is a good right centre back, in the kind of formation that they have. But when does the game start? I think in around 33 minutes. Let's have a look. Champions League. Yep. So it starts in 33 minutes. How do you guys think about Red Bull's style of football? I know. I think, like, personally for me, I only got to watch them a slight bit this year, a little bit more so, after the lockdown because Bundesliga was the only league on. Yeah, I'm Francisco. Medi's at work right now actually, but I think he might be able to join in later on. We might be able to give him a call. Where are you watching from, Benza? Golafo? Yeah, I like Red Bull style of play too. I mean, it's interesting because one of their issues right now is that they lack a striker, right? Someone who actually scores a solid amount of goals. Poulsen is good, but I think he's better off as a second striker. And when he's alone, I think he doesn't take as many chances as Werner. And that makes Sabitzer, it puts a lot of pressure on him to create goals, when he assisted like Dani Olmo as an example, or, just in terms of Sabitzer, he's had lots of long range goals and stuff, but you can't, go into a game expecting that will happen. But I do really like the way Red Bull plays with Upamecano as well. I think he's given like a license to kind of push forward as a center back, and it's interesting how they switch between a back four and a back three constantly. Absolutely. I mean, people say Werner's going to get the like a medal, right? But I mean, you don't want to earn a medal by not playing. So that's obviously a big deal. I think Chelsea would be a good team next year, though. It depends. They still need to upgrade their defense. I know a lot of Chelsea fans want Havertz as an example, but there's if they need to spend that money, they need to spend it a little bit better elsewhere. I think the good thing for them is obviously they're still spending. Their net spend is really good because they're using most of the Hazard money from the Real Madrid deal, so that's kind of a good thing in the favor of Chelsea. Do you think Lyon is going to do better than Barca against Bayern? I think so. I think because just Lyon naturally play much more defensive. Barcelona are never a team that try to play defensive to start. So I think they, and also like just in terms of the way Lyon plays, they have three technical midfielders who are quite good against press, and you could see in the match, like I think Sergio Roberto and Vidal, they're not really good at ball retention in my opinion. And I think the best qualities about Vidal, for example, is his work rate. But at his age, it's kind of similar to Matuidi in Juventus, where he isn't so physically. He's no longer got the gas tank that he used to have, and therefore he's not so useful as a player. Even though he shows a lot of heart and he tries to help the team, I think you need to move away from these players, because elite teams like City, Liverpool, and Bayern have at least half of their squad with a lot of young players who can press against you. And when you have, like, for example, modern wing backs like Robertson, Trent, Alphonso Davies, it's too much trouble, I think. I also think the back three right now in football is very good in terms of defense. That's one thing that I think Lyon work very well with, because if you look at their season, they got 7th place when the league ended, right? But a lot of their midfielders who are playing right now didn't get much game time except for Aouar. So, for example, Bruno Guimaraes and Kakare as well haven't played much football. So it actually shows you. I mean, Lyon has always had a lot of good youth talent. Obviously, you would know. I mean, you're a Benzema fan, right? Inter against Shakhtar. That was an interesting match because I think Shakhtar had, I would say, easier opponents going into the semifinals. So you might have expected for Shakhtar to do better versus Inter Milan, but when it came down to it, I think Inter Milan started to pick up their form as well, because their first game back in the Europa League wasn't the best, and then since then they've been, I think, like, for example, Lukaku has shown that he's very, very physical. I mean, he's so hard to deal with sometimes, and I think Martinez as well has picked up his form. Like, he's scoring 2 goals yesterday was fantastic for him, but I mean, he's just a young player, so it's kind of scary what Lautaro Martinez can become. I think what's weird is the situation with Conte in Inter Milan, because 2 weeks ago he was making comments against the ownership, and it seems like Allegri might replace him, but he has a very long contract, so I don't think Inter will want to lose too much money dropping him as a coach, and that's basically the situation there. I think Inter versus Sevilla is going to be an interesting game. The problem with Sevilla as well is both their strikers. I wouldn't say are top class. I wouldn't say they're Champions League level strikers. They have Luke De Jong, who came from PSV, and he's found. Yeah, no, me too. I thought Shakhtar was doing well. Was going to do a lot better. 5-0 was definitely not what I expected. But maybe it's just also Inter Milan just improving lately, and I would hope Conte stays with them, because I think he has a philosophy that he likes to play, and sometimes it takes time to adapt to that kind of philosophy as well. The problem with Sevilla, I think, is they don't have many goal scorers, basically. So, I mean, Suso scored, obviously, versus Man United, but he doesn't score too often. Ocampos is realistically their most attacking player. He did a United versus Inter final. Yeah, I mean, that's the funny storyline, right? Because if, for Man United fans, if they lost to Inter Milan, I mean, people would be making all the jokes about, Young, Lukaku, and Sanchez, beating them. But I mean, also, it's not a good look, I think, for United to lose to Sevilla, because I think if you look at Sevilla's league position, they're also a fourth place team in La Liga, and you'd expect for United to do a bit better. Obviously, they rested a few key players, but I don't really see what's the point, because basically they play Bruno Fernandes 90 minutes every game, and I think it just doesn't make any sense, because if you want to rest players, then you might as well start to rest players like Bruno, but he's been played practically 85, 90 minutes every game, and by the time the season starts, I think he's still going to be a little bit tired, because there's a lot of physical demands on him, playing for Man United, and they need depth more than they need Sancho. So that's basically what the Sevilla game told me. But I mean, ultimately, you can see with Rashford and Martial, sometimes even if they're not having a good game, it just takes one counter attack, and Martial's very good at hold up play as well, and so they can kind of steal a penalty here and there versus top teams. What do you guys think about the new loans from Real Madrid? So obviously we had the confirmation, I think, of Rainier to Dortmund. So that's quite interesting. And obviously Kubo to Villarreal. I think, Kubo for me was fantastic this season. But obviously he was playing with quite a weak team that couldn't, make use of his creativity. I think so too. I think Inter is going to win as well. I think I wouldn't say Sevilla got lucky to beat Man United. I mean, I think usually the best team does end up winning. But, I wasn't very impressed by Sevilla's lack of chances. I think Banega was very good for them, actually. And I think it's weird, because he's going to be up for a free contract, so he might move away from the club. And, I think they're not going to spend too much money this window. So I'm not sure if Sevilla will do very well going forwards, but it is one game, and I think one of the issues with Inter Milan is ultimately, I think, their defense is a little bit hit and miss sometimes. I feel like he's phased Skriniar out of the lineup, and Godin has kind of picked up form slightly, but they concede too many goals, in my opinion, considering that they actually seem to have a lot of good world-class center-backs, right? And I mean, they had key injuries as well earlier on in the season, so maybe that's why it looked like Inter Milan was worse than they were. But they dropped key points when we came out of lockdown, and that obviously stopped them from being able to chase Juventus. And I think, frankly, this Juventus side hasn't been very good this year under Sarri, and you could tell the Juventus players didn't really like playing under his philosophy of football. But it's a shame, he didn't really get to do what he wanted with the squad. A little bit like what's going over in Barcelona. What do you guys think about the Messi news? Because obviously Marcelo Belcher reported that Messi wants to leave. I think that's quite interesting. Probably the most interesting story in football right now for me. No, I agree with that too. There's The interesting thing though is I would say Marcelo Belcher is quite a big journalist. I mean, he reported the Neymar news when Neymar wanted to leave to Paris, right? So it was quite interesting at the time because a lot of people in Barcelona at the time were saying that Neymar wasn't going to leave, and ultimately he did, right? I think the issue with the Messi thing is even if he wants to leave, what club is going to actually put money into buying him and then actually pay for his wages, because he has one of the craziest wages in Europe, and I think there's only one or two clubs that can actually finance that. I think United can, but I don't think they will. I think Man City are the likeliest options, and I think PSG have kind of moved away from their philosophy of buying good players because they want to keep at least Neymar and Mbappe and at least build a stronger spine behind them, because you can see I mean, PSG actually, like, a lot of people do talk about how bad the PSG defense is. I think one key thing that people miss is, of course, Munier has left and maybe their fullback depth isn't great, and Thiago Silva leaves after the season. So their defense has been okay for this year, but I think it needs to improve, and so PSG need to spend there, basically. Messi ever leaves, he needs to go to play for Juve. Yeah, of course, I'd love to see Messi and Ronaldo play together. I really would struggle to see how Juventus pay for both players at the same time, because I mean, their wages combined, that's almost more than most top clubs, to be honest. I think Juve would really struggle to pay, and you saw like with FFP, they had to sell Cancelo as an example, and that's a big problem. Let's see if there's any news on the PSG Red Bull Leipzig match ahead of the game. It's crazy to see, how fast Red Bull Leipzig have grown. I mean, obviously they're backed by, an energy drink company, so they have money, but they haven't actually spent too much in football. I think their kind of like scouting philosophy has been fantastic. So it's interesting. Messi ever leaves, he needs to go play. Yeah, that's right. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't see Messi leaving to MLS or China now, because I think for me, like, I could still see, like, if Messi really wanted to collect a lot of money, then he could still go to MLS or China later. But the I think the MLS and China are introducing like wage structures so that the foreign players aren't allowed to make that much money. So for example, players like Pele or Oscar, who left early to China, have made a lot of money, but now I think the opportunities to make money in China are a lot less, and that's an interesting thing. So for example, Real Madrid set up a deal to sell Bale last year, but that's declined, and now you won't be able to get massive transfer fees because the way the Chinese club the way the Chinese league have set up transfer fee rules for foreign players is that the clubs have to pay 50% of tax on top of the additional transfer fee back to the league. So you won't see that much, I think, like spending. You'll see maybe the Chinese league take up a lot of free players on a free contract. So I think still right now you won't see those two players, Messi and Cristiano, go play. Yeah, I think so. I think everyone would love to see Messi and Cristiano in a charity event. That might be one of the most watched games of football, that we'll ever see. To be honest, that's gonna be very, very interesting. It's like I remember back then, everyone wanted to see like even like a Messi Ronaldo advertisement. You want to see them together instead of like on separate brands, right? And that's the crazy thing about football. But yeah, I think Juve can't afford them right now because they've mentioned that Ronaldo is a huge kind of strain on their wage bill, and they also have to re-sign Dybala. So I think the only option where Messi might go to Juventus is if they drop Dybala and sell Dybala first, and then find the money to go make Messi. But that still sounds a little bit crazy because I'm sure Messi's wages are a lot higher than Dybala's. How do you guys think Red Bull played versus Atletico Madrid? Because we obviously didn't do our post-match analysis video, but I'm sure a lot of you guys would have watched the game. Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think anyone can. Maybe Man City could do it. Maybe PSG could do it. But obviously that means, Neymar and Mbappe would have to leave as well. Hey, Mehdi, how are you? What we could do is get Mehdi on Discord if you guys want. and you can hear his audio. You missed the game. I think the game was a lot more about, how Atletico Madrid, because they usually play a 4-4-2, right? So what happened there was Red Bull Leipzig kind of had three midfielders, and they crowded Atleti's midfield. So we did kind of touch on that in our PSG versus RB Leipzig preview video. So if any of you guys are interested in that, there's still 15 minutes before the match starts. So that's where we posted our tactical analysis on the game. So Red Bull Leipzig have a similar matchup. The only difference is they play Mukiele today. So, but he is still a defender. So that tells you, Nagelsmann probably tried to prepare for this game by being a bit more compact at the back. Whereas versus Atletico Madrid, they played three midfielders and tried to overcrowd, Herrera and Saul. And I think Simeone, I've given him a lot of credit in recent years for the work that he's done, but I think that was poor. I think when you saw how effective João Felix was, and he asked them to kind of revert back to very, rigid football, I think that was the mistake, because this Red Bull team doesn't do very well versus, individual kind of ball carriers. They're very good at kind of holding possession. I think Upamecano is a fantastic player. So when Icardi isn't playing, I think you'll see Mbappe in a more central position to start with. And the interesting thing is Upamecano usually kind of drifts a little bit forward in between their right back and their left center back, right? So maybe there's a gap where if Neymar can find the space where Upamecano moves too far forward, that Mbappe could actually run through that space, and that might be an interesting thing. Otherwise, I think Upamecano is very, very composed at the ball. He seems like he has fantastic ball retention skills, and he also is very, very good pass. So he drives deep into the field and carries the ball very much like a world-class defensive mid, to be honest. And I think he's a pleasure for Nagelsmann to have, because Nagelsmann also usually likes to ask his center mids to kind of drop back one at a time. He doesn't like the double pivot to stay on the same line. He likes them to have one a little bit more forward so that they are ready to kind of receive a pass, and one drops a little bit deeper to kind of support the center backs. And another thing, of course, is Angelino is always pitched, forward into the field. Yeah, no, I think the story this season was Icardi has been fantastic for PSG, but when he played versus Atalanta, he seemed out of shape, and I think he couldn't get on the end of Neymar's balls. Whereas you saw, even though Mbappe was coming back from an injury, he was able to do that, fantastically. And Mbappe was the key difference, in allowing them to kind of go through the game. Unfortunately, of course, Neymar played fantastic, but couldn't actually find the net as well. So that was a bit of a shame. But I think Neymar has constantly proven that he's a world-class player. It's just a shame that he's missed the last 2 seasons due to injury when it came down to crunch time in those kind of big European games, right? I think Di Maria isn't spoken about enough as well, because frankly, he plays fantastic football, and he has good link-up play with Mbappe as well, and he's got a great finesse, from the right side of the pitch. All good. We'll see you back in 5 minutes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think, and that's the thing. Like Mbappe, he's not just a pacey player, right? He's got very intelligent perception of the game, and he can see the end of Neymar's balls. And Neymar is a very tricky player, and the way Mbappe plays alongside Neymar is that he is uniquely able to find Neymar's run. So if you compare, for example, to Adama Traore, who still has improved quite a bit as a football player, and with his football IQ, he still doesn't run at the end of balls the same way you could see Mbappe. And I think he Adama Traore is the fastest player in the Premier League, but does he score as many goals as Mbappe or someone like Sané or Mane, who are very fast players that we've seen? Salah is a good example as well. Much more intelligent players. They're also a bit more technical. I think Adama Traore was, when he came out in the championship, he was shown to have very good technical skills, and he was creating a lot of successful dribbles. But yeah, and Neymar and Mbappe, fantastic link-up movement. And the thing is too, Mbappe has shown that he's able to play and kind of assist players, and so he's not too greedy of a player actually, in my opinion. And I think that's what really helps because Neymar wants to have more of the ball, and he deserves to have the ball because he can dribble very well. And I mean, you saw it when he broke the kind of all-time dribble success record in the last game versus Atalanta. Welcome back. And what do you guys think about the kind of narrative about, the German and the French teams coming back? Are you guys mostly Premier League fans or Spanish League fans? Usually, because I imagine it's quite shocking that we have two German leagues and German league teams and two French league teams, in the semifinals. It's quite a good story for football as well. Yeah, no, of course I could tell you're a Madridista. So am I actually, but let's keep that a secret. No, I'm kidding. But wearing my PSG shirt today, actually, if you can see. I don't know. From UK, yeah. No, I think that's quite normal. A lot of football fans are, I think, fans of the Premier League because even if you watch outside of those main European countries, the Premier League is such a big commercial league that inevitably one of the first teams you actually end up watching is. Yeah, I do like this shirt because it's the kind of Jordan brand T-shirt from PSG, so I quite like that. What I do want to get my hands on is the Real Madrid away kit from the 1920 season. I think that blue and gold is fantastic. I'm kind of sad I wasn't able to get that because it's always out of stock. What team do you support, Mr. Ali? Man United. Yeah, no, I mean Man United. I mean, I've been waiting for that Sancho transfer to kind of come through, but I really don't know if it's the end of it, because it seems like Sancho doesn't want to hand in a transfer request, and he isn't like Ousmane Dembele, and strange that the kind of talks have cooled off. Still follow Premier League big clubs, but I follow every team in La Liga. That's fantastic, honestly. I mean, I think not enough people watch the kind of smaller games in La Liga. And there's a lot of good teams, and you could see, for example, Getafe had a fantastic run earlier on this year. But it's inevitable as well that you watch Real Madrid more. Do you think Hazard will have a good season coming up? I think with Man United too, going back to the Sancho thing, it's the depth. They need to really strengthen. Maybe if they can't get Sancho, I would say get Grealish and then try to bolster your defensive mid depth, or even left back, because it seems like Shaw doesn't get enough game time. I know he might be injured as well, but you could see Brandon Shaw he's too raw of a player, and I think he really struggles versus class wingers. Oh, Mehdi, what is Leipzig's ceiling with this squad? Europa League, Bundesliga? Well, I mean, clearly it's Champions League, right? In terms of the ceiling, do you mean like winning the Europa League trophy? Bundesliga, Champions League. I don't think they'll win the Bundesliga with Hansi Flick in charge in Bayern. I think this Champions League might be their best shot because, it's just one game, right? And one game is all you need. The thing is, though, Red Bull don't really have any pacey players that can kind of abuse Bayern's high line. So I feel like they'll just get overwhelmed. And they have already struggled versus Bayern in this season. You could see when Bayern thrashed them early on in the year, right? And also, so I would be worried, if I was Red Bull Leipzig playing versus Bayern. And unfortunately, with Bayern in the way, unless Bayern lose to Lyon, I think you won't see Red Bull Leipzig win the trophy. But they do have a shot, I think, at beating PSG, because, frankly, PSG are a bit unlucky because they're missing Navas today. You guys saw the Atalanta match, right? There was three key chances where Navas had fantastic saves, and now he's out. That's a big loss for them. Gaya is one of their defensive players, and he's very good at recollecting the ball and retaining possession for them, and recovering possession, rather. So that's an interesting thing for Red Bull. Yeah, I think that's the positive thing about United is that their academy is fantastic. So a lot of young players have done fantastic for United, and they've managed to kind of retain that, right, kind of structure and philosophy in the club, and it's deep rooted down to the bottom. And still Rashford and Martial, as their leading scorers, are still so young. In terms of Hazard, I think it's the same. Yeah, fantastic example with Courtois. He's really picked up his form this year. I was really splendidly surprised by how well he performed. And I think Hazard, mentally, I think he just wasn't in it. Sometimes when you're injured constantly and you come back and then you're injured again, you really lose the momentum. And I think your head's not right. So I think this is the kind of season for him to start. Thank you, Jack. In terms of Europa League, I think funny thing is I don't see this Red Bull Leipzig team, as long as Nagelsmann stays, I don't think they'll ever drop to the Europa League, because you could argue that with the Bundesliga commercial revenue being poor, not many teams could actually compete versus Red Bull Leipzig. So they actually have strong finances, and it's only Dortmund who are up there, I think, with Bayern in terms of having commercial revenue that is strong and having a backbone in terms of the technical structure of the club. Yeah, I think Real Madrid, I think the preseason time is always a poor time for Real Madrid, because Zidane doesn't seem to put a lot of effort into trying to instill his philosophy in the preseason. But I think what you might be surprised with this year is obviously this, they've already played a year under Zidane, so there's not much to kind of learn and pick up. Last season was a bit of a testing because of a testing ground, because that was Zidane coming back, and they were trying to establish a philosophy without Cristiano Ronaldo, right, for the first time with Zidane. And I think over the course of the year, Real Madrid were able to develop a few tactical structures and styles that Zidane enjoyed, and that's what was really helpful for Zidane. And you can see, for example, Rodrigo and Vinicius, slowly improve. Why doesn't Zidane like Bale? I think it's a mixed relationship. I think, frankly, as someone who's watched every game of Bale, I would love to see him return back to his previous form, but there are moments where he's injured at times, and there are moments where Bale, unfortunately, isn't able to kind of create in the same way. And I think another problem is simply their relationship is soured very poorly, and I think Zidane wants to get rid of Bale. There are a lot of young players waiting in the wings, and as unfortunate as it is, because you have to give credit to the fact that Bale was a fantastic player in his prime for Real Madrid, and he really won them, for example, massive trophies like the Spanish Cup, and we all remember that famous goal with Bale, scoring versus Barcelona and going through Marc Bartra with impeccable pace. He's managing PSG, an impossible job. I think I would argue yes, unless you have a top-class manager who's proven himself at other levels. So, for example, someone like Zidane, I think, if he went to PSG, would have the confidence of the players and would have the dressing room. I think Tuchel actually has done very well. You saw kind of instances early on in the year where Mbappe seemed to be frustrated at Tuchel and showing a little bit of diva mentality, but I think their relationship has improved, and I think Tuchel has a good relationship with Neymar, who has a good relationship with Mbappe, and as long as you're able to kind of hold a good relationship with Neymar and Mbappe, I think you're able to kind of hold the dressing room. So it really comes down to how well you're able to understand Neymar and Mbappe as players, and I think they're divas in a sense, but they also appreciate a manager who understands their unique sensibilities, right, as footballing players. Atletico is so good in preseason. Well, I mean, you're right. So, I mean, Atleti had a wonderful preseason where they beat Real Madrid. But it ended up being for nothing, because their kind of early part of the year was very poor, and wasn't a good look for Atleti for most of the year. And it took until the post-lockdown for them to kind of post good results. I mean, they did knock out Liverpool, but let's be honest, I think that was a little bit of luck as well. Adrian had a poor game in the second leg, and I don't think Atleti created enough where you could say, wow, this Atleti side is really good. What I do like is João Felix is fantastic. I mean, unfortunately, though, Lemar has posted 0 goals, 0 assists this season, so it wasn't a good turnover ratio for him. Very poor season, even worse than his first. And, they did spend a substantial amount of money, and now in the COVID-19 market, Atleti aren't going to be able to find players. They might even have to sell players like Partey, for example, if people are able to meet his release clause. Yeah, the game is about to start, so I would say load up your streams, and we'll try to sync you can try to sync the game timer. Is Lamar the Lingard of La Liga? I think Lamar is even worse than Lingard because, it's not like Man United ever bought Lingard for a substantial amount of money, right? Lingard is a product of the academy, so it's even more unfortunate for Atleti because they spent a substantial amount of money on Lamar and he's produced nothing this year. Yeah, so I think my prediction was 3-2. I think Mehdi's prediction early on was 3-1. Is your prediction going to change slightly with the fact that with the fact that Icardi is not starting Mehdi? So guys, the way it's going to work is that the countdown timer will start as soon as the game starts. Obviously, the first minute of the game will be where they kind of give their thanks to and also honor the kind of victims of befallen to COVID-19. So I think that's a good minute for us to have a kind of moment of silence and just pay our respects, and then when the game starts, I'll start the countdown timer, and you can try sync your stream to mine, and we can retain the kind of stream like that. Where are you watching the game from, Ben Zigolotho? Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? A lot of people think it's all about Neymar and Mbappe, but having Di Maria back is essential. And I mean, ultimately, Icardi will be a substitute, and Verratti as well. USA. Yeah, so that's what I thought actually, because you do tend to comment at very American times. Total Sports Act, yeah. I usually get my streams from Reddit sports streams, but I'm not gonna post any links here or post footage because that would be against very basic copyright rules. But really excited for the game to start, to be honest. I just hope Mbappe makes it through the game, and doesn't re-aggravate his injury. That would be a real shame. Yeah, Verratti's on the bench, so he was injured basically going into the Atalanta game, so that's why he didn't play in that game. But there are signs that show that he was training and he seemed to be in good shape. So I think you will see him play in the second half. But it might be the case that, for example, if let's say PSG have a lead, they might not play Verratti because Gueye is a much more defensive player, and I think they might want to, prevent Red Bull Leipzig from scoring. What Verratti does provide, of course, is link-up play and a lot of technical skill that I would say Herrera and the kind of other midfielders in PSG do not have. But you still see, for example, Neymar dropping very deep into the field. And the interesting thing is, of course, a good comparison is Messi. So Messi drops deep a lot of the time. And unfortunately, it doesn't work out very well because at his age, you don't want Messi to drop deep. But Neymar is still at his prime where he can still dribble across the entire field, right? And he can still create. All right, so my game started 16 seconds in, so my game timer is a little bit funky. I know, I'm sorry guys. Timer's a little bit odd, but wonder if there's a way I could fast forward the timer. Yeah, so similar formation from Red Bull as far as I can see, but you'll see Angelino drop very far forward effectively over the course of the game. Over the top ball from PSG. It's so funny to see Tuchel, unfortunately, with his injury. I think he was rumored to have been injured across the game. And you can see, for example, at Angelino's advanced positioning, it really does help Red Bull find like an outlet on the left, because they don't really have an out-and-out left winger. Werner used to play, for example, from a wing-based position, but now with him gone, there's no real two forwards that they can play with. So they kind of play Poulsen right down, bang in the middle with Olmo, and then Angelino provides you that kind of width on one side, and Sabitzer and Leimer kind of rotate on the right. Ooh, I think you could spoil. I would say maybe spoil like after you wait, like let's say 30 seconds or something like that. Probably a better idea. And one of the beautiful things of the way Red Bull play is look at how the kind of defenders separate themselves from each other. They're very practiced at kind of giving each other space from playing out the back. You'll see that usually when people have like three at the back formations, they're actually very compact. But this Red Bull team is actually very happy to kind of split apart aside and let a midfielder kind of drop deep into the kind of space created by the center backs to pick up a pass. PSG is pressing quite well though. And you've got Neymar, as a false nine in a sense. Good chance by Nkunku, but it'll take a lot more to actually break, I think, PSG's defense. So they're really trying to go for that kind of over-the-top ball to Mbappe. What do you guys think about that strategy? The Leipzig coach's playing style, I think it's very dynamic football, but he does prioritize effectively verticality. So he really wants his players to drop a pass and advance the play, not necessarily through switching, side to side, but through trying to drop the ball deep into the center, and then maybe if you can't find an opportunity through the middle, then play it out to the sides. I'm not so sure about playing Neymar at the top of the key though, to be honest, because you do want him to drop deeper into the field and actually hold the ball, because I don't see many PSG players in the midfield that they have advancing the ball, and as a result they have to look for those over the top balls to Mbappe. So for PSG, Juan Bernat always plays in an advanced position for them, but that always makes them defensively susceptible. So for example, if you look at the kind of goal that Atalanta scored, that came from the right side, right? And Pasalic was able to score because Juan Bernat was out of position. So that's a bit of a risk. Yeah, so you can see, I think Neymar's just naturally drops a little bit deeper than Mbappe, I think, the way the formation goes in terms of out of transition. Because he needs to find the ball, and he's the one that needs as many touches as possible. Paredes is quite a technical player. I think he's quite well-rounded, which is a good addition to the midfield, but that's the thing. They don't have the players in the midfield to actually transition the ball effectively to, let's say, the wide players. So I'm kind of worried about the fact that they're trying so many over-the-top balls. I think they're going to lose the possession too much to Red Bull, and you don't want to give Red Bull... Ooh. What do I think of the game so far? I think it's quite end-to-end. I think... that's going to be interesting. I mean, Neymar with a miss there. Whew. Man. It's a shame that Neymar's missed, on his last 3 outings on goal, but look at that wonderful pass from Mbappe. Fantastic. Look, hitting the post is always unfortunate, I think, that's just it's an inch, right? It's an inch, and but that's the thing, you know, Red Bull. I just don't see them being able to hold out Neymar and Mbappe for 90 minutes. You know, we've already seen a fantastic chance from PSG in 6 minutes and 20 seconds. So, okay, not exactly sure what happened there. Handball apparently from the ref is what he's claiming. I think it was a difficult chance for Neymar. I think you know, the optimal play would have been if he was chipping towards the left, actually, right? Because the keeper was more positioned towards the right, regardless. Um, yeah, okay, that was a handball from Neymar, very clearly so. What do you guys think about the handball rule in football right now? I think it's very unclear exactly what leads to a penalty, right? When someone touches the ball with their hand, and it's so much worse and so much more aggravated in the Serie A, where they have a very stringent rule on the handball. And I think one of the key issues is you need some sort of uniformity in the rules in football across Europe. You don't want different competitions to have different handball rules, because players will have to practice playing in a different way defensively. Yeah, Medi is in the comments today. So you can see Sabitzer running down the right. That's exactly what we said would be an issue. Very smart play to cut back. Ooh. I'm just not happy about Poulsen. I think, for example, even if you watch the Atletico Madrid match, he really doesn't make enough of his chances. And that's the problem. Sabitzer's really smart, and he has vision too, but who's going to score the goals for you when Poulsen is your sole striker? And he's just missed a clear opportunity there to kind of hit the ball. Because if he hits the ball on target, there's a strong opportunity for that to be a goal. And Nagelsmann is obviously a little bit angry about that. That's shocking. That's a shocking miss from Poulsen. Yeah, the live stream is a bit delayed, guys, because we want to. I think it's just there's a natural delay when you stream on YouTube. So yeah, you'll see Sabitzer is I think he's the only one in this Red Bull team to have license to take long shots, at least when the play isn't open or broken. So we saw obviously Tyler Adams score his goal, but that was, you know, on a clear counter-attacking play. But Sabitzer has the kind of the license from the coach to be able to try those kind of long shots, because that's in his locker. Otherwise, I think the way the Red Bull team play is a very dynamic side, and they very much switch in between each other's positions. Whereas, for example, with Paris, the way the PSG players play, especially the midfielders, is they make space around Neymar, or at least they try to find a way to give Neymar the ball as soon as possible, because Neymar is still in that kind of athletic period in his career where he's able to carry the ball very far deep into the field. And you saw how effective João Felix was at doing that. Crunching tackle there from Mukiele. So Mukiele is, another defensive kind of player put into the lineup. So that makes Red Bull a little bit more defensive today. And it makes sense because you're dealing with two offensive players as opposed to, for example, when you play Atletico Madrid, where Felix might have been the only dangerous option, right, as a technical player. How much are Leipzig missing Werner? I don't actually think they're missing Werner at all. In terms of like how well they're able to create chances, because Werner, you know, is a player who doesn't press too much, right? Or at least he isn't able to hold the play up. And I think Red Bull really like having the ball in possession, and that's what you kind of need to do to starve out PSG, because they don't have Verratti on the field who can actually retain the ball. But what Werner does bring is like the intangibles, right? So being able to score a goal, and that's what you need in these kind of games where you need to make your chances count. So I think Werner would have been key, for example, if he was a substitution. Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? PSG have too many classy players. You can see the interplay between Di Maria and Neymar, and they're just hounding Red Bull Leipzig. By contrast, I think you see that Red Bull doesn't have any players that can really carry the ball across. Maybe you could say Nkunku. Good defending by Holstenberg, though. Or Klosterman, sorry, my bad. You don't want to see the Red Bull team pick up too many yellow cards, though, because that will kind of affect the way they press. I wouldn't say they require on tactical fouls to play the game, but they are reliant on the fact that they're able to press teams and recover the ball. And if you're not allowed to be so aggressive with for example, Neymar drawing cards early, that's a problem. And just for reference, I think my stream timer is 20 seconds behind. Neymar, I think Neymar could bully any team in football, frankly. I mean, even if he played versus Bayern, I think he would be able to draw fouls. Oof, fantastic. Goal for Marquinhos, unless that's VAR reviewed. I mean, Neymar's doing everything, isn't he? Able to kind of use his vision, set piece creator as well. Neymar to Marquinhos, that's the second time we've seen that. No, it's all good. There's no spoilers, actually, because I think my stream is slightly behind, guys. I apologize. The countdown timer is slightly incorrect. So, and that's a natural thing. You'll see that I have a playback. Fantastic header. So Neymar to Marquinhos for the second game in a row. This time, however, Neymar does intend the pass, and it's fantastic. You don't really want to see a team concede a set piece, but unfortunately that's what's happened. We'll see how Red Bull can recover from that. I think they're going to find it really hard, though, with being on the back foot, because, as I said, they don't have any players that can actually carry the ball effectively into the field of PSG, and then PSG have the option of counter-attacking with Neymar, Di Maria, and Mbappe. And what Di Maria does so well as a player is he plays off the ball. So when Icardi plays, he's looking for himself to score goals. But Di Maria is looking for ways to link up with players, ways to find Mbappe, get into the game. Because you can trust Mbappe. He's one of the most lethal finishers in Europe, despite his young age. And I think Red Bull, if the game kind of stays in his favor, I think the only way that they can get out of the situation is by putting another midfielder in and just kind of risking it by trying to overcrowd PSG. PSG playing very, very well, though. And ultimately, it's just all about giving the ball back to Neymar and recycling the play in that sense. Not too much press from Red Bull, though, which is something I'm a little bit shocked by, because I think when you see, for example, Herrera and Marquinhos, I think you should try to press these players. Otherwise, if you give, for example, this PSG backline time to kind of breathe and pass out of the back very slowly, which is what they're doing, they're just going to eventually find Neymar, who drops, for example, in between the lines. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be interesting to see Neymar and Mbappe versus Bayern Munich? So look at where Red Bull are in the field. They're kind of letting PSG kind of creep up ever so slowly across the field, and PSG are kind of building up their high line. One of the things that Bayern does is they don't let you breathe. They just put all their men forward, a little bit around the kind of halfway mark of the field. And how does the PSG defense react to that? They really starved Barcelona, and Barcelona obviously you would expect to be a team that can pass out of the back, but that was not the case versus Bayern Munich. So that's one of the problems, I think, and I think Verratti might be key in that instance. So you would really want to see Verratti come back. Look at that. So PSG kind of play very passively around the back and just wait for a chance to give Neymar the ball, and that's exactly what they do. And that's what Red Bull has to take advantage of. They need to shut down those kind of options from the defense and just press the individual defenders, and I think man mark them. That's what you saw Atalanta did so well. So they pressed each individual defender from PSG back, and they man-marked them, and that forced Keylor Navas to distribute very, very poorly, and that allowed Atalanta to creep forward into the field. Very bad touch there from Red Bull. We'll see what happens there. I think Mbappe was offside there. I agree, though. The PSG backline could absolutely get at that Bayern defense, because And I think that's something that they must be practicing with Tuchel, right? Because those over-the-top balls will absolutely work. There's no way Mbappe is going to lose a foot race versus someone else. You could see, for example, Suarez was able to beat the backline when, for example, Semedo went for a kind of pass in between the lines. And so, I mean, Mbappe is going to make most of that. Decent cross in. This time Marquinhos doesn't do much with it. Neymar's offside. I think Campbell and Limer need to play slightly better this game. You know, they're key to this. So the system with Red Bull is that they usually ask one of their defensive mids to drop back and help, you know, navigate the ball and employ a little bit of verticality with passing. And if they're not able to make use of their first touch, then that's a wasted chance. So that's Angelino running in behind. This game, though, you can see Angelino doesn't have the same license to go forward. I think that was clearly probably a part of Nagelsmann's playbook where he wants to be a little bit more defensive, but he usually does play at a kind of left wingish position when they kind of face like a 4-4-2 formation. But because PSG went 4-4-3-3, I think you need your fullbacks to stay a little bit more behind. Yeah, I mean, Boateng was absolutely destroyed by Suarez, right? And you would say that... Ooh, what's going on here? No. Well, that's not what you want to see. Didn't seem like there was much there in the replay. I'm not really sure what happened, to be honest, after looking at the replay. I think the way Red Bull recovers from this is they have to activate a press at least, maybe, you know, in the second half of the match. It seems like they're playing a little bit more cautious right now, and that's, I think, counterintuitive. They need to, you know, press the individual players because, for example, players like Carrera have a mistake in them. And you saw that last year, for example, when Kimpembe and Carrera were making mistakes versus Man United, right? And that was a complete shock upset for PSG last year. But they managed to do it. And you have to say that Red Bull have to kind of create those chances out of press. You want PSG to win the UCL? Are you like a fan of Neymar and Mbappe? I would have thought that as a Real Madrid fan, you might be a bit scared because if Mbappe wins the UCL with PSG, he might not go to Real Madrid now. I think, for example, United missed a player like Ander Herrera. He gives a lot of depth to the midfield. I mean, obviously at the time when he was playing with United, he was a starter for them, but you can see he's fantastic bench option for PSG. And they need to just kind of bolster the defense when Thiago Silva leaves. And obviously Munier has left as well, so they need to defend upon that. And what we've seen from recent years, unfortunately from PSG, is that they've lost a lot of their youth players. So, for example, Luca Digne, who, you know, you'd say is one of the better left backs in the Premier League, you know, used to play for PSG. They could definitely use him. That's true. I think at Mbappe's young age, you could really say that he, you know, if he wins the Champions League, he's won every single trophy. And at such a ripe young age, you'd think that he'd be able to win a lot more. But in terms of Champions League trophies, you know, I think a player like maybe Asensio, if he stays, you know, he's got a shot at maybe breaking the kind of Champions League record. The record is obviously 6 trophies, and he's got 3 of them. great interplay with Red Bull. I think that was an uncomposed pass, really, and I think Nagelsmann would be quite unhappy about that. They do try to kind of open up the space by having. Red Bull are pressing a lot harder now, so that's really good for them. Absolutely, Mbappe is going to be a future Ballon d'Or winner. I think Real Madrid would love to buy him, but it really depends because Paris are a club that can really say no to any amount of money. So I wonder what the situation is there. Mbappe is fantastic, and it's good to see that he actually got up there and tried to keep playing, because you don't want to see players. You want to see players who are hungry to fight for the ball, right? And that's something you want to see. For example, if he intends to go in Real Madrid. Yeah, I think we've all seen that kind of picture of Mbappe in his bedroom with the picture of Ronaldo. So I think most Real Madrid fans are holding on to that, definitely. So yeah, Red Bull actually very often look for these kind of cutback options. The only time they'll ever kind of look for a cross is, for example, if Angelino finds the end of the ball, or Sabitzer is given license to cross from the right. So those are your kind of like makeshift wingers in the dynamic formation of Red Bull. So Red Bull have come close a few times, but once again, it comes down to the fact that you don't really expect any of these players to score goals. And that's a shame because, Poulsen is a good player. He's a good shadow striker, I'd say, or second striker, but, not your main kind of goal option. They do seem like they could really do with a target man, I would think, Red Bull. And I wonder if this season will kind of incentivize, a little bit more spending from the club, to be honest, because they have a large amount of ownership and they could do very well with spending more money and building upon this season, along with Nagelsmann, who actually seems to really enjoy his kind of relationship with the club and how he's been able to develop the team over the last years. 2 Champions League qualifications, a semi-final in 12 years since the club was opened up, and then so many kind of like academy options that you can get from Red Bull Salzburg. I would like to see the referee maybe put a yellow card on these players. I think Neymar has done more than enough to actually earn those yellow cards. So I would like to see the referee actually kind of police the game in that sense, because I think Neymar has done very well to dribble past the Red Bull defense. But if he's not getting rewarded for it, then Red Bull will continue to use fouling as an option to stop Neymar, and that's not what you want to see. Oh God, so close. And once again, Poulsen just doesn't make use of that chance, and it's shocking. That's really poor. Really, really poor. The fraud Guardiola. I mean, I think Guardiola sometimes feels like he has to prove something to other people in terms of maybe tactically, or maybe even to himself. I think you could say he's a bit of an artist with the way he sees football. I think sometimes you have to just understand that you have a more superior team and you should play the style that you've established over time, right? What we saw in Bayern Munich and what we saw with City is that he was able to create like a domestic structure and a specific starting formation or philosophy that the players played within. And then when it comes down to these kind of late Champions League games, he doesn't employ the same setup. You could see the same last year with Tottenham, where he didn't play Kevin De Bruyne in the first leg. I know there was that kind of injury fear and Kevin De Bruyne was coming back from injury, but you need to risk playing Kevin De Bruyne and you need to make the most of it, because the Champions League is about winning individual games, not about a 38-game season. So, just trust in your players and do better. Do you think Real can go through the round of 16 next year? I think they absolutely can. I think it depends. So the reason why Real Madrid has struggled as well is because, for example, this year and even the year previous, they've not done so well in the groups. They came out second place, right, and that gives them tough opposition. So playing Man City in the in the round of 16 is not an ideal matchup, right? You want to be playing teams like that later on in the group stage, in the playoff stages, and missing Ramos has been crucial for them for the last 2 years. You could see it was a large reason as to why they were losing, and you'd like to see, I think, Real Madrid play with Odegaard as well this season, and I think in this upcoming season they absolutely have a chance And I think they'll start a lot stronger than they did last year because, you know, Zidane has already been back for a full year, and they already have an established playing style. And the only difference is Odegaard is going to be fit into the lineup. No Messi, no party. I think that's a huge fear for Barcelona. You know, they're going to show that they really struggle, and I really wonder whether they're able to stay relevant in the long term, because they have a lot of aged players, and they even bought another one in Pjanic. I wouldn't say, for example, Artur is a wonderful player. It seems like he, you know, he's been involved with stories about, you know, drunk driving, partying out too much, and, you know, maybe the senior players in the locker room didn't want him to stay, but, you know, don't replace him with someone who's another aged player. You could see that they really struggle in physically intense games where teams like Bayern are asking a lot from them, and they're not able to deliver. So players like, for example, Vidal, Rakitic, and Roberto have, you know, kind of gone past their primes and unfortunately aren't so useful. I would agree in the sense of Barcelona, but I think when you talk about Real Madrid, I think they've done perfectly fine. I think they have young players, you know, waiting in the wings. I would give, for example, Odegaard coming in for Modric is a good example. I think one of the key positions that they need to develop depth in is, you know, for Casemiro. Casemiro has played the most amount of minutes for Real Madrid this year, and he's struggled to do so. I mean, he's struggled sometimes in the games versus City, where I think he's unfortunately unable to pass out of the back. And when you don't have Ramos, you don't have any players in that kind of back line to effectively pass out of the back. Going back to the game, though, I think PSG is doing very, very well with their pressing. They're kind of overcrowding specific areas of the field to match the dynamic kind of rotation of Red Bull. And then they're just looking for these over-the-top balls, or, for example, when what Neymar is really good at sometimes is he always tries to find space to drop in between the lines of the enemy defense and the midfield as well. So he's always putting himself in a passing option for Marquinhos, who actually has decent vision, I think, from the defensive mid position. And that's what they're trying to do. Otherwise, I think PSG are just not being challenged enough by Red Bull, just because Red Bull have shown that they're prone to missing key chances. And that's what Poulsen, unfortunately, hasn't been able to live up to in terms of expectation of him scoring as their striker. Barca got players for 10 plus years. Yeah, no, Real Madrid have. I think, let's say, you could say Hazard maybe is only going to keep his level for maybe 2-3 years, but and Benzema as well. So I think, you know, replacing Benzema is going to be a hard task. You know, and even Ramos as well. I still think, you know, I'm not really sure if Real Madrid are 100% certain about the fact that Varane and Militao are going to be the starting centre backs. You know, I would like to play Varane alongside a ball-playing defender, and I think Militao is much less composed on the ball than someone like Ramos. But, you know, someone like Ramos is incredibly hard to find. I think him and Van Dijk are the only two players in the world who are good at ball-playing defending, and also just regular, you know, hard defending, where they're able to beat players one-on-one and kind of athletically match them. And that's the one thing City have struggled with. So, for example, you can see Eric Garcia is a very good ball-playing defender, but he's not a very pronounced defender. And he makes many mistakes in terms of letting kind of offensive players go past him, because he doesn't really keep tabs on them. And a lot of players have run in behind that kind of Man City defense precisely because of that. And that's why I would have liked to seen Zidane play someone like Vinicius, for example, who's able to break those lines from Man City. I think the referee still needs to police the game a little bit more, put a bit more control, because it's getting a little bit feisty. So the game is getting very scrappy now. Lots of fouls being put on by both teams, and not much penalizing. So the game needs to kind of be policed a little bit more effectively. Unfortunate passing into play by Di Maria. But look at the work rate of Di Maria as well, and that's such a key option. He drops immediately back into the midfield, and that's something he's added to his game over the years. You know, Di Maria has always been a work rate demon, but in terms of his intelligence of the defensive positioning, he's really stepped up on that in recent years. Valverde is like a Casemiro. I think Valverde is more of a box-to-box player. and I think that's a key problem. So I think Valverde can't play in that DM position so well. That's why you've seen Zidane play him in the right center mid position, and also just as a box-to-box midfielder, for example, as a replacement to Modric at times, right? Show some enthusiasm. I'm not bored. I think I'm just stuck into the game, to be honest. Just trying to see tactically what's going on, because the game is quieted down a lot more. I think Neymar and Mbappe haven't been able to get on the balls because Red Bull's press has been a lot more effective and a lot more structured in a way. And you can see that their midfielders are trying to just cut down the passing lanes to Neymar. Neymar's trying to walk away from them. So have a look at, for example, Neymar's positioning, but still, the PSG players are able to find him, and that's a fantastic pass from Paredes. Di Maria is class. Yeah, I think that's a little bit of a weird story. So I think both Real Madrid and Man United fans will feel a little bit bitter about the way Di Maria left their clubs. But at the end of the day, he's a fantastic player, and you can't deny that. As soured as the relationships have been. So Red Bull this game have stuck to more of a four back this game, much less fluid, and Angelino is asked to stay back a lot more. Interesting, because obviously that tells you that Nagelsmann is aware of the threat that Di Maria brings to, and he's so good at holding the ball up. And what PSG do, because all their players are kind of able to run in behind, is that effectively even their kind of striker at times is able to overlap on certain flanks, right? So they're all able to crowd, for example, the left side or the right side and interplay there. And even though Di Maria is so one-footed, he's still able to actually creatively effectuate situations just with his one weak foot. Sergio Rico has looked okay today, but that's also because Red Bull hasn't asked many questions. So you wonder if Red Bull will actually find a good chance whether Sergio Rico is able to make that save, because Navas has been kind of world-class for them in terms of making key saves. I remember early on in the season, in those Champions League group stages, Navas did really, really well and was stopping plenty of chances from Real Madrid. We want CR7 back at Real. Yeah, I think everyone would like to see Cristiano Ronaldo back at Real Madrid, but I think both parties have moved on. I think Ronaldo will try and hope that Juventus are able to find key players that can actually assist him, and at the same time, Real Madrid will want to have their kind of young Brazilians step up to the plate. Another free kick, but still no yellow cards. Wow, what a shot from Neymar. I'm really surprised that actually was such an effort. I think Gulakshi might have actually made a mistake then, mispositioned, because that could have really gone in actually. Well, Neymar hits the post twice in this match, so that's really unfortunate after Real lost 9 to Barca. Absolutely, I mean Real Madrid have three key Brazilians that they really hope will turn good, right? What I'm surprised with is that Real Madrid didn't really fight too hard in the market for a player like Havertz, who has shown that he is actually a big fan of Real Madrid and wants to play at the club, in a similar way to Eden Hazard. And I think now is a good time to buy him, because I think his price will only increase, for example, if he joins Chelsea and in a few years' time you want to buy him and he's a more established player. So I think that's maybe a key miss, but I understand as well COVID situation has really put Real Madrid in a bad state of finances, and you can see that they're trying to sell a lot of young players. I think, I understand with Hakimi being sold because he wanted to start, and maybe Reguilon follows suit, but we'll see what happens there. How are you guys finding the game so far? I think it's a lot more closely knit and kind of fought in the midfield now than before. So you're seeing Neymar and Mbappe get much less of the ball because Red Bull have kind of adapted to playing around them slightly, but still the problem is Neymar and Mbappe only need one moment and one chance to really kind of show their brilliance. Yeah, exactly. The fouls are really affecting the pace of the game, and that's why I'm asking for the referee to kind of put those yellow cards onto the field and kind of control the game, because you want to see football, not fouls. And ultimately, as I said, Red Bull are kind of opting for a very defensive approach. Another poor touch from Poulsen, not a good look. Way too many fouls, so still. But that also shows, that very good tactical adaptation by Tuchel and a kind of preparation as well, because he's played for three midfielders, and that prevents, Red Bull from overcrowding, because the way Red Bull set up is they added another defensive player into the lineup, and that makes them a little bit more compact, right? And now with PSG having three midfielders, they're still able to actually kind of dominate the ball, and Red Bull are finding it hard to kind of interplay between each other. So they're trying to use Poulsen as a target man, but he's not performing fantastically. Unfortunate touch by Mbappe there. I think you'll see Mbappe, slightly ease into the game more. I mean, even in the small moments versus Atalanta, he was fantastic. So, good pass by Upamecano. And that's the thing Upamecano brings to the team. He does drive forward, and he looks for very effective, fast passing plays. But bit of a mistake there. We'll see what happens with this Mbappe chance. Good job with Red Bull in their defense of Neymar. That's the thing. You can't defend Neymar one-on-one. You just have to create an outnumbering in terms of just blocking him off in terms of those kind of dribbling channels. Hakimi will do very well with Inter. I agree. I mean, look, they're playing with no kind of starting right back who's at the sort of level that Hakimi has displayed, and he's fantastic if Conte stays. But I would actually question whether if they move away from Conte, whether he would actually fit them so well. So I would hope Inter stays with Conte, because that would actually make the most out of Hakimi and make his transfer very sensible and reasonable. Do you think the World Cup being played at November, December is a disgrace? I think it's obviously more about the political issue, right? And I think it is a bit disgraceful because the World Cup was proved to be hosted by through corruption, right? And that's not what you want football to be tainted by. And so I think that's the bigger story for me than the kind of season. Because we've seen, for example, like with COVID, we're still happy to watch football at whatever time of the year. So the time of the year and the timing of the World Cup doesn't really matter too much for me, but it's more about the fact that you have the World Cup, and it's a little bit marred by controversy because the way it was given. So Red Bull have kind of elected to go for more of a man marking approach, and that's what I mentioned earlier on in the match that worked so well for Atalanta. They're moving back into that kind of structure where each player is man marking the PSG defenders, and the PSG players are finding it a lot harder to kind of service the ball to Neymar because the kind of vision from the back line isn't as good as it is from the top. But they can still find those over the top balls with Mbappe, and you can see how intelligent Mbappe is with the run down the left. Ooh, not a great pass though from Mbappe there. Good hold up play by Poulsen, followed by a poor touch by Campbell. Looking forward to the Euros. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that we'll have to wait, a while for the Euros. I agree with what you mean. I think the World Cup. I've got great memories of the World Cups being in summer, and you can. It's a great time to just watch with your friends, with your family at that time of year when a lot of people have breaks and whatnot. And it being in winter is obviously a different dynamic, but unfortunately that's just how things have turned out. And I think post COVID, it seems like people are more open to kind of their life balance being changed because our lives have substantially altered so much after this kind of virus. England squad looking strong. No, absolutely. I think what's so scary about the English squad is just the amount of youth they have, right? Not only is it just the attacking players in Foden and Sancho, it also comes down to players like Declan Rice, who seems to be a viable option at defensive mid and centre mid. I would say that they don't have fantastic technical centre mids though. They have very good attacking midfielders like Maddison and Grealish, but no one who can really sit in the hole in the midfield and be a good box-to-box option other than Jordan Henderson, I would say. And for example, Harry Winks, I think, is not a world-class player. He's a bit of a side passer to me, I think, when you compare like to the elites centre mid. So I think that's maybe an area in the field that they're missing out in. And it's just so Paris are obviously in cloud 9, but very poor, very, very poor. I haven't seen many mistakes from Galaxy really, though, but I think that's what this kind of like front three asks, in terms of questions. I would compare that more to like a De Gea, because De Gea makes lots of mistakes in terms of passing out the back at times, and I think he's a bit inconsistent. With how ready he is at passing at the back. I think Kepa's just poor overall. Not a good shot stopper of the ball. And that's unfortunate, I think. But, good for Paris. And once again, it comes down to the fact that, Neymar, Di Maria, and Mbappe press so hard up and down the field. And now it's just going to be an open game. Upamecano still good defending. And that's the thing, Upamecano also drops really far forward for this Red Bull team. Look at him fighting for the end of the ball there. But ultimately, I think Red Bull's going to be starved from more scoring chances. And really, really unfortunate now. Because effectively, you think Trent could play as a right-sided midfielder. I actually think that he might not be able to play so well there. Because one of the issues with Trent is that he's very effective when he has time and space to kind of create movements and passing plays. As he has a wonderful right foot. So he's very good at set pieces and crosses, but he needs that kind of space. And in the midfield, you have much less time. So I think that's what makes Kevin De Bruyne such a prized asset and prized gem in football, because he can actually play in the midfield and drop those beautiful assists. Oh, gosh. Another close chance from Neymar there. My goodness. Kind of a shame that Neymar hasn't been able to find his shooting boots in the last 2 games, but he's on the end of every play, and you can see, I mean, it's only eventually going to come for Neymar, that kind of goal, I think, the way this match is going. So your prediction can still happen, though, Benzigolato. I think 2-0 is the current, and we're expecting Red Bull to maybe score one more time, but it seems like, to me, heading into the second half, I think, for the next time, no, I agree with that, actually. I think I'll try and improve with making sure the match timer is in sync with what I'm looking at. Thank you for the suggestion. See if we can add any text. Alright, let's see if that works. We just added that into the live stream. And we'll update that as the game goes. But yeah, I mean, as we're heading into the kind of like extra time of the halftime, I think I'm really worried for Red Bull. I think they're just going to put an attacking substitute in terms of dropping another defender and trying to just go all out for it, because there's no harm in trying when you're 2 goals down. I think that's what you'll see around 60 minutes. I don't think there's going to be massive tactical changes at halftime, unless Nagelsmann is very bold. But it does show you, ultimately, the difference in class. So a lot of these Red Bull players have come from second division, third division leagues, and they've made their way up because Red Bull has a fantastic talent scouting system. But players like Mbappe and Neymar and Di Maria are really a step above, and they're truly world-class and elite, and they can affect the game in ways that you can't deal with. You can't deal with someone who's so intelligent like Mbappe, but also so fast. And the same thing with Neymar. His creativity is bar none, in the world. Bayern versus PSG is such a good final. Yeah, I think that's what we're looking for, right? Effectively, you'd hope that Bayern will kind of meet their end of the bargain and beat Lyon tomorrow, as we'll watch in tomorrow's live stream. But yeah, I think this is exactly what we have, and now we're kind of heading to halftime. So I'm going to pause the game timer here, and I think we'll just restart at the halftime so that we can get the game timer working properly for now. So yeah, I mean, heading into halftime, like what do you guys think the key issues were for the match? I think on one hand, I think the referee needs to police the game a bit better. I think he needs to adjust to the amount of fouls that are going on. It's really affecting the kind of flow of the game, and you can see just no yellow cards whatsoever on both sides of the pitch, and both teams are kind of allowed to kind of do what they want. And we saw that obviously yellow card on Kimpembe, but it was late in the half, and I think that's a problem. Yeah, no, I will do. I think my stream is still a little bit more delayed than yours, Benthegolato. So I think you kind of see things a little bit ahead of time in me, because I'm watching through a stream right now. So that's one of the key issues, basically. Triangles, but absolutely I will do. So I think the way just tuned in was PSG. Yes, PSG was absolutely dominant. I think Neymar and Mbappe had plenty of chances. Neymar once again had one or two instances where he could have actually scored a goal today. Instead, he got one assist through the kind of set piece play to Marquinhos, and you saw another wonderful goal with the second PSG one. But Neymar really was the one able to get on the end of balls. I think Red Bull started off the game very poorly. Their press was not so strong. They weren't asking too many questions from the Paris defenders early on in the game, and that's I think that was a key point of concern for Nagelsmann to address. And he asked the players to play much more man marking, a much more man marking style of football that Atalanta employed, that was very effective versus PSG, and that improved the flow of the game. But we saw lots of fouls, and I think the referee wasn't controlling the game enough, and ultimately the game became a little bit of an affair where it was fought in the midfield with lots of fouls. But the kind of instances, I just want to say, if you'll keep the line. Thank you, Ben Thigalath. Honestly, we're really happy that you're here, and we really appreciate that you've been such a big fan of our content, and we will 100% try to improve over time. We'll continue the videos and some interesting projects. So actually, just to give you a bit of a teaser, we are working on a video that is kind of like theorizing the upcoming Juventus under Andrea Pirlo. The video will be kind of like an animated video of what we believe Juventus should move into in terms of a structure under Mr. Pirlo himself. The funny thing, of course, is that he's not actually allowed to be a licensed coach of Serie A games, so he will have to coach technically, in terms of bureaucracy, so under another coach. And I think Pirlo will be able to employ his philosophy. He does say that he's very interested in Dutch football, and so that obviously links its roots to Cruyffian total football. But I wonder if this Juve side will actually be able to employ it. They have managed to try and get rid of Matuidi, who is like an aged veteran in that team, and he is heading to Beckham's Inter Miami. But still players like Khedira and Higuain remain, and obviously if you have those players in your arsenal, you're clearly not going to be able to play that kind of total football. Yeah, Buffon is older than his manager. I mean, Buffon has been ever present, in football, and I mean it's amazing to see that he's still able to play at his age. I find it a little bit of a shame that he beat Maldini in terms of the all-time Serie A play sort of caps record, right? And but also credit to the fact that Buffon was able to do that. Exactly, Juve's midfield is average, and I think buying Aaron Ramsey was a key mistake for them. Their free transfers philosophy has always worked very well, and Ramsey hasn't really stepped up to the plate. He also has a big contract there, so it's gonna be hard to get rid of him. Khedira and Matuidi are aged. Matuidi, of course, is leaving. Artur is an interesting option, but you hope that he's a player that really puts a lot of work into his game and to improving the kind of outside circumstances of his life, because we heard the reports lately that he was involved in drunk driving, and that's not really what you want to see from a player, right? You want to see young players who are dedicated to the game and focused on improving, and that doesn't seem to be the case with Arthur, unfortunately. I think Rabiot is a solid option, but it seems like he has stagnated a little bit as a player. Pjanic, I think he's moving on, so good luck to him in Barcelona, but ultimately they are still looking for a midfielder. I think Sandro Tonali was initially rumored after Pirlo came in, but it seems like Pirlo is more focused on Rodrigo de Paul. But we'll see what happens there in terms of Juventus. I think there are lots of options in the league. Exactly, I think Arthur is a player like that that links the midfield to the attack. But I think I would just mention, stay tuned into our video where we will actually kind of incorporate our philosophy, or at least what we understand to be Pirlo's philosophy, because we did a little bit of research into what Pirlo likes in terms of tactical football, and we tried to kind of like theorize a team under his management. Ney is having so much fun in the game, I think, and that's the beauty. I think Neymar's relationship, as reported, is seemingly better than his relationship with Messi, and I think that's the thing. Mbappe actually matches up with Neymar's game a lot better, because Mbappe isn't that sort of player who needs to play in the center of the pitch, and he doesn't rely on his vision as much, right? I'm not saying that Neymar does, because Neymar showed in Barcelona that he was a fantastic out-and-out winger. But what you can see now with Mbappe is that he is able to play both in central positions and in wide positions and play off of Neymar's vision and verticality, whereas Messi is given that kind of free roaming role in Barcelona. So that sort of strangles Neymar's ability to play football, and I think Neymar feels much more free and unleashed at Paris. And I'm happy that he's just not injured in this season, and he's able to play in these kind of top class European games and show how much class he has as a player. I think PSG still need to bolster their defense, because Thiago Silva, I mean, you can see he's still a solid defender this game, but he is leaving at the end of the season. And I mean, while it would be fantastic for him to leave with the kind of UCL trophy on his back, long term, I think PSG need to make moves to bolster their midfield and defense as well. Very similar to Juventus, I mean, Juventus, for example, still play Cuadrado as their starting right back, because they had to sell Cancelo to Man City due to FFP. And of course, Juventus are missing a starting right back who is, class, like Cancelo is on the right, and they need to upgrade there. And they already have like plenty of centre backs, right? So Chiellini was injured this season, but they still have Bonucci, and then they have Demiral and De Ligt, both those two young players who can stay and play in Juventus for a long time. But yeah, it's about upgrading that midfield and kind of determining what they want to do with Higuain, for example. Higuain has stayed in the team for a while, but it doesn't seem like Pirlo might be so fond of him. He's obviously at the end of his prime, and he doesn't do enough work in terms of dropping deep to actually create space for Ronaldo, and that's what Cristiano Ronaldo needs. So I think they're looking to someone like Lacazette, who drops very deep. When you watch Arsenal play, for example, Lacazette offers those options to him. So once again, stay tuned to that video. Let's go back to Red Bull in Paris for a bit. I think Red Bull do have a few depth options in terms of the midfield, but really no depth options in terms of replacing Poulsen as a striker, and I think that's a problem for them. Meanwhile, you could see Paris could play Verratti once again to control more of the ball and retain possession and retain their lead, right? And even Gaya could play. I'm not really sure what his exact injury situation is. Maybe they might be more keen on resting him, because you'd want to see a player play in the final as well if he's able to make it. And I think with Paris, Icardi not playing today was a fantastic option by Tuchel. Having Neymar and Mbappe kind of alternating the roles where they're both able to play in central and wing positions means that you have three players who are able to press up top, and that really anchors Red Bull and forces them to play their kind of four-back default formation instead of having Angelino push up the field. And ultimately, Neymar's verticality puts Mbappe into fantastic positions, and Di Maria plays very well off the ball for them and his work rate has shown to be fantastic. So really good option by Tuchel to not play Icardi today. I think that's really smart from him. And how do you guys think Bayern Lyon will line up? Do you guys think it'll be the same formation versus Barcelona that Bayern employed? Because obviously we hear that Pavard might be back. You know, he was back in training, but I really do think they will play the same formation. And also, what do you guys think about in terms of watching Bundesliga? You know, like, do you guys think you'll be watching more of the Bundesliga next year, given the fact that they've shown that they have top level teams in Red Bull and Bayern Munich? I think the nice thing about this Champions League story is that, you know, a lot of people are much more tuned in to the fact that the Bundesliga is a top league. And that's another thing that the kind of restart of football showed, right? Because Bundesliga was the only live action league at the time. And they've kind of proved it in the sense that they might be one of the top leagues. Obviously, we see PSG dominating Red Bull in this game, but, you know, there's still Bayern left in the competition, and they're a fantastic team, it seems. Yeah, no, I agree. I think the tide of the game won't change very much. Hey, Shada, how are you doing? Yeah, you only watch the Bundesliga, but only the big games. No, I agree with that too. I think a lot of people like to tune into the kind of classic matches between Dortmund and Bayern, and unfortunately, in the recent years, you know, we've seen that Dortmund have been utterly thrashed by Bayern. But you want to see a team be able to actually contend versus Bayern Munich and take the league title away from them. But effectively, it seems like every so often, you know, in the second half of the season, teams like Dortmund, teams like Leipzig slip up, and unfortunately, they lose the grasp of the game. Same with League One. Interesting. You know, I frankly I haven't watched too many games of the League One. And you know, it's always wonderful to watch Neymar and Mbappe, but it really does seem like they're so much more of a step above, you know, their kind of counterparts in the league. And you know, it's a shame that, you know, Monaco and Lyon haven't been able to kind of compete versus PSG. Italy is interesting because obviously, I mean, Juventus is dominant, but they still look like a weak side. You know, when you watch them playing versus Lyon, they don't look a very complete side whatsoever, and that's a bit of a shock for me, in my opinion. I'm a little bit worried about the fact that, you know, with the Ronaldo wages, they won't be able to spend to improve that squad. And ultimately, it seems like the Ronaldo transfer doesn't change much because it took away from them, you know, in terms of having to sell Cancelo, but it did improve their attack. But, you know, right now they've got an aging squad, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of cash left in this buyer's market for Juventus to improve their team. That Cristiano goal against Lyon. I mean, Cristiano's a fantastic player. There's no way you can doubt that. And I mean, it's just a shame that he hasn't been able to progress forward. And the same with Messi, right? You know, you want to see these two players fight for the biggest trophies all the time, and it's a shame when they're not able to do that. And Barcelona seem like they have an awful board, a board that can't support, you know, Messi and his ability to play fantastic football at 33 years old. You know, Messi showed that he still has amazing vision this year, but ultimately, when for example Messi and Suarez both start and they don't press at all for you, you know, the rest of the team is going to suffer, and that's what you saw versus Bayern. They lost the central midfield battle, even though they employed four midfielders in the game, and that's because you have two players who don't really press at all versus the side who can press at every single corner of the pitch. And for example, you can see the difference in quality of fullbacks as well. Davies offers offensive work rate and defensive work rate, and you know, whilst Meadow does offer offensive work rate, nothing in defense. And I think with Sergio Roberto, you know, he's a player that originally was not good enough to play for the Barcelona midfield, and then was put into right back, right, to kind of alleviate that situation. And ultimately, when he was put back into the central midfield position versus Bayern Munich, you could see that he wasn't able to retain the ball, and that was poor from him, and that's a shame. So we're hoping the game to kind of restart soon. I'm personally quite excited to see what happens next, but I think it's more of the same, right? I think you can expect PSG to kind of show their class through their kind of starting players, and we'll see what happens. Insane that club Chris has scored. Yeah, that's the thing, right? I mean, Juventus really need help, and Cristiano really needs help. and I think he's very upset that he's not able to get that kind of help. That's what separates Premier League from other one-team leagues. I think it's interesting seeing that, like different people win the Premier League every year. But I think, for example, now we've seen a sort of dominance from Man City and Liverpool, right? In a very similar way to Barcelona and Real Madrid overall in the decade. Of course, with teams like Valencia and Atletico Madrid having chances, right, to win the trophy. And for example, you have like the wonder story of Leicester in previous years. But now it seems like I still can't see, for example, maybe Chelsea could do it because they still have a lot of money to spend. But I think there's still such a large gap in the Premier League between teams that aren't Man City and Liverpool. Because look at that gap between City and Liverpool this year, and then there's a larger gap between City and the rest. All right, so we're waiting for the game to restart. Seems like Verratti might show an appearance later in the game. And what do you guys think about the kind of atmosphere in terms of watching a game without fans? Does that take away a lot of the game from you? I'm afraid the game tomorrow will be too predictable. In terms of Bayern Lyon, do you think Bayern will just dominate the game then, Ahmed? So one of the issues I think I guess you could say with Bayern playing is, they'll really be able to make the most out of the fact that Lyon's very compact. Those kind of wing backs will spell a lot of trouble for Lyon, who don't have the same kind of options in their left wing back and right wing back position. Okay, two big changes from Nagelsmann. They've replaced Poulsen, I imagine, who's not had a good game, with Schick, who's a striker for them, and they're playing Forsberg, who's obviously like an attacking midfielder. So, as we mentioned, they would likely put an attacking option and try to replace Poulsen. But it's really good to see that a coach is bold and going for that kind of uncharacteristic move. For example, we saw Zidane not make substitution options, and I think he paid the price versus Man City because his substitutions were quite poor in that game, as much as I like to credit Zidane for his fantastic work. Alright, so the game is about to start on my end, so I'll start my stream then. Yep, okay, the game started. Apologies if I'm slightly far behind. How come no one talks about Griezmann, but everyone gets on to Suarez? I agree. So I think Griezmann hasn't had a good year at all, and obviously people make the kind of excuse that he, should have been played more in the center. And I do agree. We shouldn't be playing Griezmann as a left wing or and as a wide midfielder. But ultimately, I think Suarez is a fantastic player. Messi's a fantastic player, but I think you just can't play both at the same time. So I'd rather see, because I don't see Suarez pressing at his age, but I do see Griezmann pressing. I think you could see he was a little bit lazy in the Bayern match, but I think that's just natural because you can see your team dominated, and I think, Setien that has no control of the dressing room, and none of the players seem really want to fight for the shirt, which is a bit of a shame for Barcelona and such a world-class club. Referring to your last question, while the crowd atmosphere makes the game much better, and I miss it, they've really done well to mitigate it. I agree with that too. I think, look, sometimes you miss the crowd, but ultimately you still get to watch fantastic football, and I much prefer an atmosphere where you get to watch football than not. And that's what it comes down to for me. Nice cross from Sabitzer. I'm a little bit shocked that Schick didn't try to actually go for a shot on goal there. I think he could have fought for that ball. That was a bit odd. Really poor pass from out of the back from Red Bull, but good press from Sabitzer to retain. Oh god, really poor from Poulsen. His touches are just all over the place in my opinion. But I think Red Bull seem to be very hungry for the game. Without fans is really weird, but it helps when you're playing away. I think that's the thing too, right? You know, not having fans is an interesting situation because some players seem to benefit from the lack of fans, and some players seem to miss, you know, kind of living up to the occasion, living up to the kind of pressure that the crowd atmosphere brings. For example, Neymar, I think, is a player who thrives very much from playing with a crowd, and it seems like, I mean, even though he's playing fantastic in the last two matches, you know, I really think that he would have scored some of those goals if there was a crowd, funnily enough, because he is a player and a big match player at that. Poor pass from Marquinhos. I think that has to be a after the fact yellow card. We'll see how Red Bull play off of this. So you can see Schick kind of drops deeper into the midfield to kind of help retain the ball. Really good play by Angelino there. Ooh, and Forsberg. Look at how high up Upamecano is on the field. He really does act like a false defensive mid for them. And he seems to always be positioning astute. So even though he's making these forward runs, he's never really out of position. And that's what I like about him. I think he would actually work quite well, you know, as a replacement for Ramos, for Real Madrid, you know, as shocking as that might be. There's 100 billion power players to fill the same position. No, I agree with that. So I think he's mentioning, you know, Coutinho, for example, being where the money was spent. Another instance being Griezmann, of course, with his release clause with Atleti. But I think that's the problem too. You know, the board have done such a poor job in terms of trying to replace Neymar, and obviously Dembele, by the way, as well, another option. But you know, Dembele unfortunately has been permanently injured. I actually think that they have like a Neymar replacement. You know, I mean, obviously no one is going to play at the level of Neymar, but in terms of what he offers to the team, I think Ansu Fati plays very well as a just regular winger, right, who plays off the ball and has pace and is able to make runs in behind. Obviously, he doesn't have the sort of vision as Neymar. He's not as elite as a dribbler, but you know, he has that kind of frame that plays well off the ball from Messi, right? Griezmann is someone who still needs more of the ball, and I think even though he's fantastic at 1-2s, you should play Griezmann at a more advanced position. So maybe play him as a false nine and have Messi play as a right inside forward to link up with him, and then have Ansu Fati on the left wing to play alongside the both of them. This way you can still play Griezmann and utilize his pressing abilities, right? I'm really excited by how well Red Bull are now playing from the left side. I think Forsberg has completely opened up Angelino, and their 1-2s are going to be quite scary for the team, for Red Bull. So I think really good tactical adaptation by Nagelsmann. They're now unlocking the left, whereas previously they were solely relying on Sabitzer and his ability to actually keep the ball and whip crosses in. And by contrast, you see that PSG are really struggling to get onto the end of the ball. So I would like to see Verratti play and kind of keep the ball away from Red Bull, because it seems like basically the kind of man-to-man press of Red Bull is affecting, you know, players like Marquinhos and their ability to actually keep the ball. Do you think teams charge extra with teams like Barcelona, Man City? Absolutely. I think that's actually something you see quite often is the case with Man United, for example. They've had to pay a handsome fee for their players. For example, Maguire, Wan-Bissaka have paid a high price. But look at Man City. They got Ferran Torres in an absolute steal of a price for 20 million. So that was quite shocking to me. But on the other hand, of course, they paid quite a handsome amount for Nathan Ake. Ultimately, though, I think Man City have made good business because, you know, they still have the money that they made from selling Sane to Bayern. So that's kind of positive for their kind of net spend situation. If Pogba ever left, I would love to see him play behind this PSG attack. I think absolutely that's the case, because it would sort of mimic, you know, the kind of French national team setup. It's almost like the French national team with Neymar. Obviously, you don't have a player like Kanté, but, you know, Gueye is kind of there, who plays a similar kind of role for the team. Marquinhos has shown to be a fantastic DM, so maybe you can kind of utilize both of them like a Matuidi and Kanté sort of setup that allows Pogba to have more of the ball. And that would mean for me that, for example, Verratti would have to leave, because I think that's what Verratti currently provides to their team. But Pogba has that sort of Pogba has a fantastic long ball as well, and that would really unlock Mbappe and both Neymar as well. Barcelona have spent ungodly amounts for no reason. I agree with that. They've spent a lot of money and they've gotten absolutely nothing out of it. They look in a worse state than they have been since Neymar left. And Neymar leaving, gave them a fantastic amount of money that they've completely wasted. I think Forsberg has been fantastic. I agree. Poulsen has been doing a lot better in terms of recovering the ball. But you want to see Red Bull kind of make use of the effect that they're actually getting inside PSG's box by ultimately getting the goal in. Good hold of play by Schick. Close. Much better by Red Bull, though. They're really stifling the ball from PSG. Nice off the top ball there. Brilliant touch by Neymar. Wow, that was fantastic. I think that's a foul there, in my opinion. They spent 100 plus on Coutinho, Dembele, and Griezmann. Yep, they did. Lots of money spent actually on all those players, and it's unfortunate. I think you really wasted a lot of money on those players, and I think when you realize that you can't replace Neymar, you have to kind of change the dynamics of the team. So, for example, they could have looked at maybe buying another striker, for example, earlier on, or, for example, trying to upgrade their midfield, right, instead of getting more kind of depth pieces like Vidal. Even though Vidal, works very hard for the team, I think that's a problem with Vidal overall. He's provided very little in terms of actually upgrading the midfield, in my opinion. De Jong has been fantastic, and I think that's where they actually spend good money. But, plenty of hundreds of millions spent by Barcelona. PSG are playing very well, I agree. It would be interesting to really see what happens if Red Bull are inclined to spend more money, because, they do have the backing of a lot of money, just with the nature of Red Bull as an energy drink brand and as the leading kind of energy drink brand in the world, right? And it would be interesting to see what kind of results Nagelsmann could post if they really do spend to get maybe more world-class players into the setup, because obviously they've scouted and hunted for talent from for example, the second tier and third tier of the Bundesliga and the German league setup. But you need to have those kind of individual players like Neymar who are able to make kind of unique moments in football. Even with the Bayern side, you can say, ooh, they have plenty of players who can do that. Wow, fantastic. I don't think that's a controversial goal at all, guys. What do you guys think about that last goal? Because for me, I think you have to play to the whistle, right? And Mukiele, I don't think was fouled, so he didn't get up at all, and he was expecting the referee to call a foul, and ultimately, the play continues. Really poor, I think. So he dribbles out, and then on the replay, I think he just slips. So you need to play instead of raise your hands to the ref. Oh, actually, no, sorry, that's an offside, is it not? Is that not an offside from Juan Bernat? You play to he slips, and I think you don't raise your hands when you slip up. You need to actually defend for your team. But I think Juan Bernat is still in offside position, right? Or am I wrong? I think it's taking too long right now, actually. What's so controversial about this call? That's one thing I really want to see VAR improve in. If the decisions are quite clear, you just get over and done with it. I don't think that's a foul on Mukiele at all. Clear slip. You know, what's interesting about there's a tornado in my area, so I can't watch the game anymore. Oh no. Do you want me to kind of update you what's going on in the game, Benfica Lafa? Hope everything's okay there. I agree. You have to play on, and that's a goal, and that tells you, you have to play to the whistle. This is the occasion, and you can't just raise your hand and expect the referee to kind of play to your whims, right? Really poor, I think, from Mukiele there. I think that was a very big individual mistake that will be remembered from the game. But I think, when it comes down to it, Red Bull haven't done enough to make any chances, and so I think PSG will be fondly remembered. Yeah, don't worry. I'll be able to give you updates on the game. I mean, right now I think Red Bull will just keep more of the ball, but I think Paris is very happy to kind of sit back and just defend their lead, and then on the off chance that, Red Bull overpress or have too many men forward, they can easily counterattack with Di Maria, Mbappe, and Neymar. I think quite fortunate that, Red Bull haven't asked many questions of Sergio Rico today, because that's a key point of attack, right? When Navas is missing, and many people would mention that in the last few years, Red Bull have missed, PSG have missed a world-class keeper, and before they got Navas, that was a key point of contention, right? Areola wasn't good enough for them, and many other keepers too. Good attempt by Di Maria. So PSG are now able to kind of press and make Gulakshi kind of look for long range distribution, because they're kind of man marking the back line of Red Bull. And PSG now have a lot of time with the defenders once again, similar to the first half where, there's not enough press on the individual players. And I think maybe you could mention that the Red Bull players are a little bit disheartened. A 3-0 deficit is hard to come back by, and I think they feel quite disheartened by what happened with the third goal, because maybe they might have feel hard done by the ref. But ultimately I say, you have to make the occasion count. Okay, Red Bull have a chance here. They're in PSG's box. Sabitzer has the ball, goes for a long range attempt, and it goes straight into the hands of Sergio Rico, so no questions asked of him there. I think if I was Red Bull and I was trying to strengthen next season, I would say they have to spend some money on a striker, someone to actually fill in the gaps of Werner, someone who's able to actually get them a consistent amount of goals per season, because this team actually does build quite a few amount of chances. Really poor tackle from Leimer there, so he gets a yellow card. He slides in and tackles Marquinhos, who is unharmed, fortunately. Really bad tackle there. But I think that's the thing what I would do with Red Bull, because yes, they have a philosophy of dynamic flowing football where they play with a lot of verticality, but they need more class players, right? And maybe also they might want to look into some wingers, because the way they play with their system is, I would say only Sabitzer is able to play on the right. I think Forsberg, you can see, is able to unlock the team a lot more on the left side, and so maybe actually getting a left winger who's able to play alongside Angelino could be the answer long term for them. As far as PSG, I think everyone's played a wonderful game so far today. I think all the players have played their part, but it's more about kind of improving on their depth defensively. Red Bull has gone for another substitution. They've substituted Leimer with Halstenberg. Halstenberg, of course, is just another defender. So interesting to see what that kind of does. Halstenberg is usually played in a centre-back position for them, as a kind of left centre-back. But he is flexible in that sense. So I think maybe that what's going to happen is they're going to push Angelino to a more advanced position, and they will place Sabitzer slightly deeper to kind of alleviate or cover for the position that Leimer is leaving in the field, and they'll play like that, I think. Another thing I'll mention is that Red Bull really like to play with possession, and what you can see with technical players like Mbappe and Neymar is really hard to actually keep them off the ball, and so as a result PSG have a lot of possession from their back because so much effort is put into stopping Neymar and Mbappe, and you kind of create these numbers where you're trying to maybe put a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-1 on Mbappe and Neymar, and what ends up happening is that a lot of the PSG defenders and the midfielders have much more time on the ball, and that allows them to keep possession. And I would say Marquinhos has been wonderful in terms of being able to be very precise with his passing success. He is one of the key players in the midfield, even when they play without Verratti, who's able to actually service the ball to Mbappe and Neymar at times. So that's really good for them. And I think Ander Herrera is kind of another stable option. So glad to see Tuchel play this formation. I think ultimately what you will see, though, is Icardi might be substituted on soon, as I feel like you want to kind of rest these players and kind of keep your lead, as much as possible. And I'm not really sure about Mbappe's, his physical fitness, because obviously he comes back from injury, so maybe you want to rest him and put Icardi in for a few of the minutes, drop Neymar into more of that left wing position, and see the game out, from that point of view. Leipzig's defense has been sloppy tonight. Absolutely the case. I mean, even their keeper was sloppy, right? So you could see, for example, with the second goal, the third goal, Mukiele, for example, was very poor as well. Gulakshi, really bad passing out of the back for the second goal. But I think that also points to the fact that, Neymar, Mbappe, and Di Maria are very good at pressing players. And not much is said of their kind of work rate, My prediction for Lyon was 7-4 Bayern wins. That's quite a bold prediction. I would find it quite interesting if Lyon would be able to score 4 goals. I think even though Bayern play a very high line, City played a high line too, and ultimately Lyon scored 3. I think City still have a worse defense than Bayern Munich, and I think I would even predict something like 5-1, maybe 5-2. So my prediction was Paris was going to win 3-1. It's now 3-0. I wonder if my dreams can come true. I don't have any money on that, though, so we'll see what happens there. I think what Lyon have showed, though, of course, is someone like Moussa Dembele has been fantastic for them, and they have good depth options in terms of being able to play Depay or Toko Akanji in between games. Akanji coming from Villarreal early on in the winter break, and Moussa Dembele coming from Celtic, right, in the Scottish League. 1 goal away from Justin Mehdi's prediction. Yeah. I will say, though, but by the way things are going, I really don't see Red Bull scoring, and I think maybe Paris could have another goal in them, but it really depends. You have 25 minutes left in a football game. Anything can happen. We've seen absolute craziness with Tottenham versus Ajax, so I won't be too bold with my predictions, but I think the way of the game, it's just this Leipzig team aren't able to deal with the explosivity of Neymar and Mbappe, and ultimately also the work rate of Di Maria. And what do you guys make of PSG's defense? Because many people would criticize, their defense as being very poor, but it seems like today they've performed quite admirably. I would also say that Poulsen has had a very poor game. I think that's cost Red Bull. He could have had 1 or 2 chances on goals, and instead, I think when you see the stats at the end of the game, you'll probably see that Red Bull probably have only 2 or 3 shots on target, and that's not good enough. For a side that wants to vie for the championship here. I would still say that I think I haven't really seen much of a mistake from Upamecano. I think he is still a top prospect, and I think much hasn't changed. Absolutely, we're going to see versus Bayern Munich. I think the defense has been great. Leipzig have never looked comfortable up front. No, I agree with that too, and I think that comes down to maybe you could maybe mention that obviously it comes down to PSG playing very well with their defense, but I would say Poulsen has had a poor game. the PSG players are actually quite well rehearsed in understanding the way Red Bull plays. They like advancing the ball to players very high up in the central position of the field. And then they like kind of cutting it across to someone who's at an advanced wing position. So, for example, Angelino likes to sit very wide and then look for a cutback. And PSG isn't playing, they're not lunging for tackles. They're not sliding in. And they're understanding that, for example, Sabitzer is looking for a cross from the right. Or for example, Angelino is looking for a cutback. So if you look at, for example, the Atleti game, Angelino is able to create an overload on the left. And he looks for a cutback for Tyler Adams. And obviously there's a deflection goal, but that cutback is what PSG has been very successful at defending tonight. Some very poor passes from Red Bull as well in the midfield. That's been quite an issue, and I think also the retention from the defensive midfield has been very poor tonight. So something that Nagelsmann will have to look at. We still haven't seen how PSG will cope under pressure, though. No, I agree with that, absolutely. I think Atalanta were able to show what happens when PSG puts on the pressure early on in the game. And you could see Atalanta's man marking really pay dividends when they scored their first goal. But it seemed like, when it came to the 75th minute and after Mbappe was subbed on, they really just couldn't hold on. They just didn't have the legs. And one of the key things with the Bayern Munich lineup is that they've been so fantastic at being able to make the most out of the physical intensity of their team. And they ask so many questions from opposing teams just through their kind of pressing intensity and their high line. And not only that, they have fantastic technical players. So, for example, Kimmich is a fantastic player, Thiago as well, and Goretzka has improved leaps and bounds, I would say, as well, over the course of the year. And that kind of ball retention and creativity really bolsters the side that is still able to, press effectively. And then you have, for example, Davies, and not many teams know. Like, for example, like this Paris team can only have an attacking option through Juan Bernat, whereas I would argue that both Kimmich and Alphonso Davies will ask these kind of offensive questions. PSG has done better than they did against Atlanta. I agree. I think that's exactly the case. And I think that's because, you have two more offensive guns, right? You have Mbappe and Di Maria. I think Icardi was slightly poor, and I think it was a good decision by the coach to actually move away from Icardi this game and to actually retain a little bit of midfield possession. So that's the thing here. For example, you could see Carrera is on the end of the ball from Neymar, but they're not able to create enough options from the right hand side. So I think that's going to be a key issue from Paris. It's when let's say players are pressing Neymar and pressing Di Maria and Mbappe, who else is going to be able to create offensive space, and kind of make moves for this team? Because Carrera, for example, plays a very kind of defensive role, and that limits them. So that kind of man-marking matchup where you have with Bayern is going to be an issue. What I've really liked about this game, though, is that I think the PSG midfield have pressed well. And another chance from Mbappe there. He almost had a good shot on goal. Di Maria turns onto his left. And then he looks for a shot on target from Paredes. But, not many questions off of Glucksy there. I think Mbappe still is a little bit away from full kind of fitness. I think in the last two games, I've seen him take those chances where he hasn't been incredibly efficient with the ball. But he was very close there. Obviously, both times he's shot from his left. And Mbappe is, of course, a right-footed player. But you can see, he is close to being as dual-footed as possible. And that's like an interesting thing. So, for example, a player like Greenwood is so devastating because he is so two-footed. And I worry, for someone like that's an additional dimension to the game for defenders. Usually you're able to kind of push someone onto their weak side, and that's why a lot of defenders will push Mbappe to his left foot because it's much worse than his right. But for someone like Greenwood, very hard to defend versus. One thing that Red Bull is struggling with right now is they're kind of really finding it difficult to kind of play in between the lines as versus Paris. Something that they did versus Atleti was just overcrowd the midfield, but because Paris actually have a midfield three, it's not so easy to actually pass through the midfield and to actually hold the ball in those pockets of space. So I would actually say definitely a tactical mistake by Simeone in his game versus Red Bull, and by contrast, I think Tuchel has adapted very well, considering that Paris usually play with a 4-4-2, which means that they would have employed a double pivot if they retained their usual formation. Ultimately, though, like the impact of Neymar is that you have a player who can. He's like a get out of jail free card, right? He can drift the ball into the midfield and into advanced spaces, and once he gets a touch on the ball, people find it very hard to foul Neymar, because fouling Neymar just means that you're playing a time game where eventually you're gonna rack up yellow cards, and what that means is that the subsequent attacks will be even better for Paris. Obviously, you don't want to see Neymar get injured. That's the only kind of opportunity cost, I suppose. I think the Red Bull team they're getting a little bit gassed. I don't see anyone running into that right back pocket of space, so no one's really asking many questions of Juan Bernat, and I think that's quite a key issue. I think that's what happened. So usually they have the kind of right wing triangles with Sabitzer and Leimer. Ooh, chance for Poulsen there. Good tackle from Kimpembe. Argentina looks for recovery from Campbell. Campbell just into the left side, does a backheel pass, cross in from Red Bull, really asks no questions, and Sabitzer is on the right, and he looks for a play. I'm glad to see, an astute level of defending from Paris. That's one of the things I was a bit worried about because they were losing Munier. But Kimpembe has stepped out to the plate. Carrere has had a solid defensive game at least. I don't think he has any offensive output, but yeah. It frustrates me that Simeone hasn't been brave enough with his formations. I agree. I think, as a manager, you have to adapt over time. And I think sticking to one philosophy shows that, you're too rigid and you're not fluid. I mean, even if you look at, for example, Guardiola, he hasn't retained the same tactics when he's moved into teams. And he's had to adapt to, for example, key players leaving his system, right? So, for example, when Lam left, he had to adjust his formation, and it's the same with City. All right, PSG are on a 1-on-2 now. Oh my God, Di Maria makes a slip. Okay, well, a bit of a wasted chance from Paris there. They were clean through on a 1-on-2, and unfortunately, Di Maria slips. One thing that I would say as well, I think Campbell has struggled a bit too this game. What he usually does is drop deep for the kind of Red Bull defense and offer a passing option, but he hasn't been fast enough with picking up the passes. And obviously, Forsberg has improved that kind of in that role, but right now, Red Bull still are struggling to find questions that can actually pressure Paris enough. A lot of the ball is ended up on the kind of outside of the edge of the box. So, for example, Red Bull are finding a lot of time there, but Paris are very composed, and they have three men there kind of clipping the kind of entire box. And that's something that Atleti struggled to do. So, why is Werner not playing? Is he injured? I imagine that's a joke, right? Bente Golato. But if that was a serious question, of course, he's in Chelsea. he decided not to play the Champions League, and I think maybe that might have been a little bit of impact from Frank Lampard there, because obviously as a manager you want your player to not come into the preseason injured, and you want him to start the season well and adapting to your kind of style of football and philosophy. So yeah, he's chosen not to play for Red Bull during the Champions League run, and that's the problem. So basically they had to play Schick as their other kind of alternative striker today. I would like to see Tuchel make some substitutions, because I think you want to kind of protect the result, but on one hand you also want to protect your players, right? I wouldn't want to see Mbappe, who might not be fully fit today, play the full game. So I would like to see some substitutions, maybe some defensive substitutions for him, just so they can protect this lead. But it seems like this Red Bull is putting a lot of players offensively up front, and that just simply means they're open for a counterattack. So players like Neymar, I think Neymar might be a little bit hurt there. I hope it's nothing too serious. I knew he was in Chelsea, but I thought he was injured. Oh, right. So basically, yeah, Werner decided not to play for Red Bull, and that's why he's not playing anymore. Bit of a crunching tackle there on Neymar. He was clipped there, but I think Neymar will be fine. So, hopefully Paris go ahead and are able to kind of make this final fantastic. We were asked the question earlier if Paris is a team that is able to is able to be managed. Wait, Werner is technically still in Leipzig. No, I think he... No, I don't think so, because I think most contracts end, when the natural season ends. So basically, players have to sign agreements to kind of stay at a club. So, for example, Pedro had to sign an agreement to kind of keep playing for Chelsea. Ooh, fantastic long range shot from PSG, but comes to nothing. Good save from Glakshi. So, I mean, it's probably around 12 minutes left in the game, and I think I don't see Red Bull scoring 3. So I think the game is relatively over. But what this does tell you is that I think this PSG side is very happy defending their lead. And I think it's a promising sign, because, many people would have thought, going to the final, that this PSG team will not ask the questions that you want against Bayern, and Bayern will make it too lopsided an affair. But I think what this does tell you is that even with Neymar not firing and PSG scoring 3 tonight, is that they still have a relatively strong defense, and I think Tuchel has done fantastically with them, and they're deservedly in the final. Unless something crazy happens in the last 10 minutes. No, yeah, so I think that miss will matter much. Really pleased with Neymar. I'm just really happy that this Paris team has been able to play with Neymar fit. So right now Neymar is sitting on the kind of right flank and interplaying with Di Maria. Mbappe asks a question of Glakshi, but nothing comes of it. I think you just have to also give a lot of credit to Red Bull. I mean, I think coming into the season, you would have never expected Red Bull to come as far as the semifinals, and it's a fantastic result for the management and for the team and for the players, really. So a lot of these players, as I mentioned, come from the second tier and the third tier of German football, and they've shown that they're able to play at this level. Ooh, Red Bull are close to scoring. They're very close to making my dream result happen, but unfortunately, it's all for naught right now. That's the thing. They're just not clinical enough, I think. And it's not just the fact that they're missing Werner. Like, I would say, for example, if you actually look at Werner's ability to score, he is a fantastic player in actually getting into positions. So he works very well for a team who's able to create for him. But Werner isn't like an elite finisher, I would say, like Lewandowski is, for example. Because obviously Lewandowski has a lot more technical experience and He's a much more veteran and virtuoso. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, Werner is someone who's going to improve with age, and he is a player who's going to ask a lot of questions of defense in a similar way to Mbappe, where he intelligently makes these off the ball runs. But he isn't an elite finisher yet, and so I think even if Werner played tonight, you would have seen maybe a closer scoreline, but ultimately a scoreline that still reflects well for Paris and the efforts that they've made tonight. So yeah, we see Verratti and Draxler in. They're here to just kind of retain the ball and close the tie out. I think Neymar just needs to take it easy here. He's had a fantastic performance tonight, if the score ends as it is, and he needs to just relax for the next game. What Paris will actually have as an advantage, by the way, is that they will have an additional day of rest. So Bayern play tomorrow, and that's sometimes when you watch tennis, for example, that is a key factor in how finals go. That extra day of rest is a really, really large benefit, in my opinion, for Paris. So I wonder if that is going to, kind of be interesting, because Bayern do play a very physically intense style. But I will say that they seem to be a very humble team. I saw the day after they smashed Barcelona, they were all back in training. And, Rummenigge, for example, was talking about how he entered the dressing room after they demolished Barcelona. And he mentioned that they were fantastic, as in they were very calm and they were very kind of collected and ready to kind of go on to the next games. And that tells you how scary this Bayern side is, because they have a lot of experienced individuals who know what it means to go deep into the tournaments and to play so well. Whereas I think maybe the PSG players are, with the exception of, let's say, Mbappe and Neymar, much more inexperienced in that sense. Bayern have a much more collective crop of veterans that, are kind of braced for the occasion. So I think, the way things are going, Paris is just trying to see this game out. Really pleased with their defense and them being, and if they keep the clean sheet, that's great news, because Keylor Navas will probably come back for them in the final, and I think Verratti could be match fit for the final too. And I think Tuchel has shown that he makes the correct adaptations, nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy, but for example, dropping Icardi this game was very smart and very astute. I would like to see them play actually a similar formation versus Bayern, because I think Icardi is someone who is a poacher, and he isn't going to run in behind. So, keeping Di Maria, Neymar, and Mbappe fresh for the next game will be key, and I think that's how they're going to start, because you want to kind of score these early goals versus Bayern and try to control the game the same way they have with the early goals that they scored here versus PSG, versus Leipzig. Surely it's unfair. I mean, I think it is a bit unfair, that sort of extra day of rest, but there's nothing you can do, right? This is unfortunately the state of football as it is now, and you have to make do. And I think, look, when it comes down to it, 90 minutes, you just have to step up to the occasion, and that's pretty much it. So PSG with 2 more late game substitutions. They're going to bring in Choupo-Moting and Sarabia, so probably dropping Mbappe and Neymar, I imagine, just to get them a little bit of rest and make sure that they're protected and secure for the next game. Oh, Di Maria's out. Neymar is still on. So, I mean, probably the right call, to be honest. I think Neymar just has to relax on the field and be a passing option, and they can just see this game out. I don't think Flick would use it as an excuse. PSG have good depth. Yeah, PSG do have good depth. Sarabia is, of course, a player coming from La Liga who has shown that he's, a practiced and experienced player. Draxler, of course, hasn't necessarily progressed so much as a player that we would have expected from his, early days in the Bundesliga. But he's still a fantastic option that you can put in late in the game. And then they still have Gueye, which I hope will no longer be injured for the next tie. So we'll see what happens there. Paredes is another solid option. So a good situation there. I think they just lack that sort of same depth at the back. And, that might be a key problem, for example, versus Bayern, who will be asking questions, much more questions from their back line. Because, for example, I would say compare Red Bull's approach. Look at Lewandowski being put in the same positions as Poulsen has been in today, and I would say he would ask Paris plenty of questions, because he's a target man. He would be able to be on the end of crosses, like Sabitzer was putting on a plate for Poulsen today. They both got an extra day of rest. Yeah, well, yeah, PSG have gotten more rest. Oh, it's more about the fact that after today, PSG will have an extra day of rest, and then Bayern will have no that 1 day less of rest, basically, by this time. Okay, and PSG have just barely missed out a chance to score another goal. Fantastic ball from Sarabia. Ooh, beautiful tackle from Sabitzer, though, actually. I would have to say, in terms of reacting to this game, I think it's less of it has been less of a tactical affair, right? I think you have to just put it down to a question of squad quality, and that interestingly probably puts larger questions on someone like at Atletico Madrid, because you would imagine that they have enough squad quality to actually beat this Red Bull side, and they were unable to actually make it count. They didn't employ João Felix early enough in the game, and they paid the price, right, for playing so defensively versus Red Bull. Whereas here, PSG played quite a standard, I think, 4-3 back, like 4 back and 3 in the midfield formation, quite defensively astute with Marquinhos as the DM, and then Herrera and Paredes, who are, I would say, in a sense, box-to-box players who are able to play both ends of the pitch quite solidly, and provide, passing options at least, but nothing too creative from the Paris midfield. Instead, they just relied purely on the fact that Neymar, Mbappe, and others were going to ask the questions, and Di Maria, of course. And I think that puts a little bit more doubt on Simeone's understanding of where this Atletico side is. PSG have gotten more rest, in my opinion. Let's have a look. How's everything going on over there, Bansigolato? Is the tornado quite a strong one, or? So effectively, we're just seeing the game tie out. But yeah, ultimately, I think, looking forwards, I'm really pleased with the past performance, and we'll see how Bayern play tomorrow versus Lyon. Lyon will, of course, be a completely different tactical affair to both Barcelona and Paris. Barcelona, I think, their formation, the way they put it out and the way they were set up, was just doomed to fail versus Bayern. But I think Paris playing a 4-3-3 is going to be much more compact, at least, than Barcelona, where they have, Sergio Roberto and Vidal as their left centre mid and right centre mid, in a flat 4-4-2. That allowed them to kind of get bossed in the midfield. And I think, for example, De Jong, who played fantastic in the match, even though they lost 8-2, showed that, he needed a little bit more help in the midfield. And I think, Paris will have that. I'm not saying that Paris have any player at the quality of De Jong's level, but they should at least play a compact 4-3-3 and try to find Neymar, who will drop deep and still be able to, in my opinion, dribble through someone like Thiago. Because, for example, that might be an ability for them to go through. And you can see when Barcelona were able to actually go through to the centre-backs, I think the one-on-ones are the chances you need to take. So, for example, Suarez was able to beat Boateng, as an example. Boateng is an extremely fast player. So both Neymar and Mbappe will be able to ask questions there. But it's more about the completeness of that Bayern side. And, they also have devastating strength in the wings. So while Paris may be able to kind of retain possession in the midfield, I really wonder whether, Carrere and Bernat will be able to sustain the offense from Kimmich and Davies, who will overlap with, for example, Gnabry and others. No Signal came back in doing good. Thanks for asking. That's really good to hear. yeah, we hope everything's fine there. Hope RB get a consolation goal. Nice dribble. Let's have a look. So no consolation goal there. And the game's over. So, you know, both Mehdi and I are slightly wrong. We did imagine that PSG would score 3 goals. They did score 3 goals indeed, but no goals from Red Bull. I think Red Bull really needed a target man who was able to actually make use of the chances, and ultimately they did not. And so PSG deservedly go through on the tie, and I'm really pleased for them because, you know, they really do deserve it. They've completely outplayed Red Bull tonight, and you know that's why you have to give credit to the players. So, you know, thank you guys for listening to the live stream. We'll catch you guys soon. If you have any kind of like recommendations for how we can improve the live stream, or any things that you'd like us to see next time, just leave it in the comments, and I think, you know, we'll use that to kind of improve our product going forwards. And, you know, once again, hope everyone stays safe and is well, and I hope everyone enjoyed the game. We'll probably be here again tomorrow for the Bayern game. So once again, take care and enjoy your evening.